Because you just get to learn so much. You get to get a little bit of fire from other people, and you get to, just get to know everybody and mingle and relationships. Exactly what she was talking about. Our next guest is Mordecai Baba. He is very famous in the community, to say the least. If you haven't seen him on Facebook or the Insta, he's doing some amazing stuff. He's working for a company that is not the 500, but 250. Was it Forbes? Forbes Fortune company. Can you imagine? This guy is making it big, and he has kids and a wife to take care of. Not just that, he also is a painter. He volunteers, and he's an event speaker. Everybody, please help me welcome Mordecai.
I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm a route manager with WM Corporation, and I manage how many people? Like roughly 24 people. The youngest is about 35. So I have people that ranges from 35 to about 65 that I manage. Okay, so sometimes I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, how do you do this? And I'm like, and I have the answers to those questions myself. It's all about talking to people without damaging your self-esteem. Okay, you focus on the issue, not on the person's personality, and that's a good way in management to set yourself apart as a good leader. You don't say, you're a stupid person, no. You say, okay, I do not like what you've done, and how could you do better? Rather than saying, you're a stupid person and blah, 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 blah. So, that's all management and all that. But I am really happy that I have the opportunity to work for WM, environmental service provider. We do recycling, we do landfill, we do energy productions, we also do garbage collections and all that. So you must have seen some big green trucks around. So I manage Saskatchewan routes. So I work a lot with dispatch, customer experience, and the safety stuff and a whole bunch of stuff, project management and all that, route improvement projects and things like that. I started with OND, Ordinary National Diploma, Diacre Technology back home. And I went for my industrial training. I went back for HND, Higher National Diploma. It's what you call an associate degree. It's a two-year program, and I graduated with distinction in electrical electronics engineering. And I knew right there and then that I wanted to see the world. I wanted to go abroad. I wanted to study more and become more of myself. So I went to Finland and I studied industrial management and engineering degree. I finished that. I started working in Finland for Lidl in a large distribution center as one of the leads, and that's where I met my wife. Someone introduced her to me. We became friends on Skype. We saw each other in person, and I got married. I relocated to Canada. To cut the long story short, I'm here. And we got 3 kids. 7 months ago, we had twins, a boy and a girl.
Wow.
So it's a busy house, but we still find time to prioritize, to grow together, and look for help whenever we need help. You just got to speak up. So we got grandma helping. That's why we're here. So the kids are not just at home. So then I came to Canada. I was looking for opportunities. My first job was a sales consultant. I didn't last there for 5 months. I quit. It was too much of standing and trying to sell furniture to someone who doesn't really need furniture and always tell you, oh, I got to check with the wife. Oh, I got to check with... So I'm like, okay, I quit. I got a job in Regina, service supervisor. I was traveling. I left that. I went to WIS International as an inventory manager. I was there. I handled some inventory projects all around Saskatchewan. Then opportunity came for WM and I switched to WM. So that's my journey, and last year I did the Master Certificate program, Master Certificate in Project Management with, it's a joint collaboration project with York University, School of Business and Edward School of Business. All the lectures were here in Edward School of Business, and I did the 6 months program. I got my certificate, and yesterday I decided to sit for my PMP exam, and I got my PMP certification as a project management professional. So I have quite a bit of experience in projects and operations as a functional manager and as a project manager. What comes to mind when I say project management? Anyone? What's your understanding about project management? What comes to mind?
I think of higher management, like CEO level or supervisor level kind of thing. Just managing a team, I guess.
Very good. You mentioned about team, managing a team. That's very good. That's all part of project management. What else? Who else?
Yeah, managing an initiative that is time-based, has a start and an end.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Project basically is something that's temporary. It has a start, it has an end. Some project will last for 2 days, some will last for 1 week, some will last for 3 years. Like the latest construction of the 2 bridges in Saskatoon, those were construction projects. They had a budget, they had a time frame, and they had a schedule that they had to stick to. So that's an example of a project. Okay, you're doing a renovation in your house, that's a project. You want to do it before Christmas, you have a timeline. That's a project. It has a beginning, it has an end. So that's the difference between project management and operations management. Operations management is what you do every day, right? The same task, it doesn't end. But project, it is specific. Every project is different. No 2 projects is the same. So when you do a project, it has a start time, it has an end time, okay? Wedding, okay? You want to organize a wedding, that's a project. Whether you like it or not, you have key stakeholders, you have risk, you have cost, you have budgets, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm going to explain to you and how you can apply these principles to your everyday living. Okay? Now, what would you expect at the end of this presentation? What would you expect? Anyone? What's your expectation? What would you like to learn? Basically. So I can know how to redirect my energy to explaining those things in presentation.
How to be an expert like you.
How to be an expert like me. Who else? What else? Any ideas? What are your expectations? Project management presentation. What would you seek to find out?
My expectation is something like setting and achieving smart goals.
Smart goals. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, I'll just put this for now I'll just write this down. When you talk about SMART goals, okay? SMART, specific, measurable. Realistic, I'll leave that for now. Time-based, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. What's this one? Achievable.
Achievable.
Correct. So this is a principle that is not just applicable to project management, but to everything in life. I use this for my personal growth. I talk about it's something that's specific that I need. If it's measurable, if it's achievable, realistic, and time-based. And that's a key principle that you apply in project management, not just project management, everyday living. And my next goal after PMP is an MBA. That's specific. I know why I want it. It's realistic, and I have a time frame for it, and I'm going to do it. The next 2 years, I'll have my MBA. I have a reason. Just like she mentioned, you are a business. You have to place yourself in a strategic position. You don't look for jobs. Jobs will come looking for you. You don't look for jobs. You create jobs. That's the goal. You see a need, you find a way to achieve those needs. Okay, remember to document the lesson learned, takeaways, because we're going to circle back towards those takeaways at the end of the presentation. Okay. Now, looking at saying project management is the new norm. Okay. I've explained a few things about project management and how we see it all around us. Okay. Organizing this event itself, it's a project. It has a start time, it has an end time. Okay, I'm going to use that as an example to explain some of the key principles. Now, according to, this is my source, they said that in the United States that there are going to be more project management jobs. This is just the United States. Then when you now talk about the whole world, it's 33% growth in project management jobs in 11 countries. Now look at when you go to Google, that's my source, you type increasing popularity of project management, or what industries are project managers in high demand. This is some of the answers you get. Project management services, you have 131,000 jobs, new jobs annually. In the statistics based in the United States. You have manufacturing, so project management is not just for a particular industry, it can be applied in any industry, including the medical fields. Okay, now if you need to do more research, please go ahead. I can't explain everything about project management in 45 minutes. It's literally impossible. And you can't even learn everything about project management in 5 years. But it's a continuous improvement initiative. You keep learning and learning. So I'll do my best to explain some of the key fundamentals. Now, we've talked about project, something that has a start time and an end time, okay? Temporary, it's not permanent. Then you talk about a project manager. Who is a project manager? The project manager is the person assigned to manage that project, okay? So you could have a project manager of managers. You could have one single project manager. You could have numerous project managers working on the same team. So you could have project manager for construction, or project manager for engineering. It all depends on what you're looking for and what you're trying to achieve. Now you have a program manager. Program manager is when you have more than one project you're handling, then you become a program manager. So you have a lot of the city jobs you see, we need a program manager. What are they looking for? They're looking for one person that is going to manage numerous projects. Okay. Then there's what you call portfolio. That's an area. It's supposed to be portfolio manager. So the portfolio manager is like the person who, like the high level manager who sits down and say, okay, all the projects we are handling in the city of Saskatchewan, how is this strategic to the growth or our plan to increase or progress in Saskatchewan? So the program manager, portfolio manager is more like the managers of every other project manager. Strategic goal, right? I believe every company has a strategic goal, right? Your strategic goal is what you want to achieve. So the portfolio manager actually makes sure that every project we're doing goes with the strategic goal of our company, goes with the vision and the mission statement. Okay, now you talk about customer or sponsor. If you're organizing a wedding or you're a project manager for a wedding or the event planner, then who is your sponsor? The person paying for the wedding, paying for all the services. So your sponsor, it's the same with the customer. Customer is external to the organization, right? Sponsor is internal to the organization. So you could run internal projects and also handle external projects. So when you handle external projects, you call the person as a customer. But if it's an internal project, you call the person as a project sponsor. It's the same thing. One is internal, the other is just external. You talk about process inputs, output, and the tools. Process is every stage of the project initiation. There are a lot of inputs and processes. So basically a process is anything that has an input and has an output. So you have to throw some things in and some things come out. While those things are in there, you have to monitor and control. That's a process. Okay? What's the process of setting up this whole presentation today? Input, you gotta get the people in here. Monitoring and control, you gotta make sure there's electricity, there's good sound, there's good food, there's water for everyone, there's bathroom. Then the output, what are we gaining? The output is the end result. We've learned a lot about project, we've learned a lot about entrepreneurship. We go home energized, transformed, rebranded. That's the output. So that's a simple way of explaining the process. You talk about risk, and you talk about baselines. When you talk about risk is, people see risk as something that's negative. It's not. A risk can be positive. It's okay. When you go with project management, you sitting here is a risk. It could either be a positive risk or a negative risk. In this case, it's a positive risk. It's a positive risk because you're learning something. You're trying to improve yourself, right? So each time you see risk, don't see risk as something negative. In project management, you enhance some risk, you mitigate some risk, or you transfer some risk. So when you enhance risk, it means it's positive. It's good. It's a free event. Putting this event as free is a risk. What would you do? Oh, it's a free event. I'll go. You enhance the risk. You use it, right? And that's how it is. If it's an event that you have to pay like $50, you have to find a way to mitigate the risk and say, okay, Okiki Consulting, can I partner with you just to help set up the whole place, and you can give me a discount. In that case, you're mitigating the risk. You're trying to cut it down. You're reducing it. You know, that's what mitigation is. Transfer, yeah, okay, or you can avoid it. That's just the basic explanation. Now, when you talk about tools is whatever you use to monitor a process. For instance, I believe someone had to make sure we had a lot of pens, we had books. Someone did an inspection before we all came here to sit down, right? So the tool to making sure this whole process of presentation goes well is inspection, checklist. So different tools exist out there that you can use to inspect or audit any kind of process, okay? Now you have baselines. Baselines are the set standard, everything you set to do. Like in a project, you have cost baseline, you have a budget limit, okay? The owner of the wedding says, I don't want to spend more than $10,000. That's a baseline, and that's also a constraint. So whatever planning you're doing, you're going to do it around that $10,000. Do we understand?
Yeah.
So you have cost baseline, quality baselines, you have schedule baselines, and so on and so forth. Okay? Then stakeholder, let me explain that. That's very, very important. When people say stakeholder, you think the high-level management people. No. When you talk about project, a stakeholder can be the end user. So a stakeholder is literally anyone that the project affects, either positively or negatively. All you need to do is just need to analyze in your project, analyze the stakeholders. Who are more important? Who are the more decision makers? For instance, government of Canada wants to run pipeline through First Nations territory in BC. And those guys says, no, you cannot run a pipeline through our protected territories. Whether you like it or not, the First Nation people, they are stakeholders in your project. And when you're doing your project, you have to identify your stakeholders. You just have to identify stakeholders, you have to analyze their needs, and you have to find a way to mitigate their risk or come to a consensus before you even initiate the project. That's one thing they fail to do. Consult the First Nation people, get approval to run pipeline through their land. Now, it's time, you started the project, you want to run a pipeline, they say no. Cost, time, schedule, you're going to run over everything. Why? Because that risk is posing, that stakeholder's needs has to be fulfilled before you can continue the project. So that's the essence of project management. That will take me to the next thing. So why project management? I just gave you a very good example. You're managing the scope, you have to manage the cost, you have to also manage the time. When you talk about scope, that's where you collect the requirements for the project. If you want to do a wedding, who are your stakeholders? Who are the decision makers in that wedding? The father, the mother, the bride, the groom, depending on who is available, right? You can even have some in-laws who are stakeholders. They'll tell you, oh, in our land, if you don't bring 22 bags of yam, you're not marrying our daughter. Oh, you understand what I'm trying to say? Or you say in an Indian wedding, if you don't dress this way or act this way, you're not going to marry our relative, you know. You like it or not, those are stakeholders. And when you do your requirement collection, when you are trying to gather information about how you're going to run that wedding, that's what you're doing. You're managing the scope. You're trying to know what's in scope. You're not just trying to know what is in scope, but you should also define what is out of scope. The reason why you need to do that is, what does the customer want? They want a venue that would, let's use this, in scope. When you're initiating this or planning this event, what do we need? How many people are we planning for? What is out of scope? What is it that we don't want? We don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want that. And the reason why you have to do what you don't want is, in the near future, the customer comes and say, oh, I requested for 6 packets of juice. You're like, no, we have it here. You never mentioned 6 packets of juice. This is what we decided. This is the scope. This is the requirements. That's out of scope. Customer and I say, oh, okay. Can we add it? You're like, sure we can, but you have to go back and assess. That's a risk. You have to go back and assess it. But in project, you run it through integration change control. That's where if you're going to introduce this packet of juice, how is this going to affect our schedule? How is this going to affect our budget? How is this going to affect our timeline? Then you have to factor all that in place. Then you make a decision. Okay? So these are principles you can also apply to everyday dealings with people. Naturally, people change. People forget things. That's why you need to write them down. You need to involve everyone. Okay? You plan the wedding with the daughter and the son, and 2 weeks to the wedding, the father and the mother come in and say, hey, no, we're not using that venue. No, we're not using those flowers. No. And you already have procurement contracts. You already procured a lot of those things. They say, no, we don't want that. You miss something from day one. When you're sitting with the customer, you should ask the question, who else is actively involved in this wedding? What does your mom want? What does your dad want? What does your relative want? You know, those are the questions you need to ask. You have to involve them early. You have to know a means of communicating with them or carrying them along. Some stakeholders don't even want to make decisions. They just want to be informed. So you need to know how to engage with them and say, okay, this month we got to keep them informed. This month we got to consult. This month we got to tell. This month we got to get approval. Okay, in as much as you get an approval from the bride, you also need to get some approvals from the groom himself, because The bride and the groom might decide later and say, we don't want this anymore. Okay, why didn't you guys tell me? You know? So these are practical ways. That whatever happens in between, that's when you manage your quality, you know, and every other variables. Okay? Now, in project management, you have 47 processes. Each processes have input and output. I'll try not to go too technical, okay? I'll just try and explain it from initiation, planning, execution, and closure, okay? Now, let's look at closure. We're done from this place today, okay? If Diacre and my friend doesn't clean up the place properly, move the stuff out, pay the bill, then what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the customer or people who gave us this place? You're not going to be happy. You might even get some fines. The same thing with projects. So procurement, you got to make sure everything is closed, everything is documented properly before you move to the next stage. Same thing in every stage of project. You have initiation, you have planning. Initiation is process performed to define a new project. Okay? So if the customer comes and say, hey, I want to build a new house, then you sit down with the customer and say, okay, two things. What kind of house are you looking to build? What do you want in the house? At that point, you're trying to develop, in project management, you call that project charter. I'm not going to go into that. That's the document that gives you formal approval to start a project. Then you identify the stakeholders. That's when you do that. So the reason you identify stakeholders at the early stage is you gather all the information you need to define what exactly customer wants. Then you can find who or where to get those resources. Then you talk about planning. That's the next stage. So all the requirements you collected like from the customer, then you have to break it down into activities. Okay? For instance, let's say building of a new telephone. You need to look at hardware, you need to look at software, you need to look at end user. When you go to hardware, then you break it down further. What are the hardwares you need? Monitor, screen, keypad. Software, what do I need? Coding, someone to write software, testing, blah, 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 you know. End user, what do we need from the end user? Testing, collaboration, what would they want? You need to do the research and blah, blah, blah. All that goes into planning. Schedule, all that. Then execution is the job itself, making it. So using the wedding as an example, the execution itself is the actual wedding day to make sure everything that you planned with the owners of the wedding go, smoothly. Then closing, wedding is over. How are you going to move everything out? Settle the bills, do all that, and that's all what goes in. So monitoring and control is at each of this stage, you're monitoring, you're making sure that what you plan goes according to the end result. Then this is just like an overview. If you want to learn more about this, contact me. I can show you, but this is just a snapshot of what project management entails. Okay? You're looking at scope, time, cost, quality, the resources you need, where you need them from. I am one of the resources today for this presentation. I was contacted that, can you present? And I said yes. What did she do? She came looking for a resource. Same thing for human resource. You look for the resource you need. There are some tools and techniques you can use to get those resources. Expert judgment, you need to ask people questions, just like the last presenter said. You need to connect, you need to ask questions, do interviews, and things and so on and so forth. You need communications. How are you going to communicate with these people? All the stakeholders, how are you going to talk with them? Communication means was phone calls. I prefer phone calls, I prefer texting, I prefer emails. That's what she did. If you need to know what each person likes, so you don't annoy your sponsor or customer, Same thing with risk. You need to know risk for everything. If it snowed today, that's a big risk. So you need to look for ways to mitigate the risk. If we're doing this event in an open environment, that's a risk. Why? So you need to look at the weather, you need to look at the time, you need to look at people involved, there's so much you need to look at. Procurement, stakeholder, buying of everything you need, who is involved, how we communicate. So when you initiate project, this gives you formal approval to go on the project. This helps you to identify key stakeholders. Then the planning itself, it's where you do all the estimating. You estimate, you create the work breakdown structure, you define the activities they're going to do today, and so on and so forth. Then the executing is you manage and direct the work itself. You have to be there. You have to make sure everything's going according to plan. You perform quality assurance, you do audits, you inspect, and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Then you monitor and control. That's where you control every aspect of the project. You're checking. You're making sure what you plan. Why are we even checking in the first place? You don't want budget overrun. You don't want inferior products. You don't want less branding than negotiated. You need to keep the branding specific. So that's what you're doing. You're monitoring and control and making sure everything goes according to plan. Then the closing itself, at the end of the project, you have to document lessons learned, close procurements, make sure the credit cards are being deactivated so someone is not using it after the project because customer will no longer pay. These are some of the ideas or things you do when you're closing a project. Same thing, closing the project, you're giving it to the customers, you're expecting the deliverables is the end result. They look at it, was this what I asked for? Yes, good. Give me a formal approval. Project closed, approved. If the customer says, no, you made me a phone, I didn't ask for a flip. You added flip functionality. What's going to happen? The project is a failure. Customer is going to say, no, I don't want it. Then you're like, what am I going to do? You spent all the money. Why? That is where monitoring and control comes in. That is where planning comes in, where you got a requirement and make sure everything is in scope. You have to keep that document. And everything that you do, you put in a project management plan. That the plan, it's what contains how you're going to succeed in every aspect of the project. Okay? Now, I want to do a practical example on how we could utilize some of the principles here. Then we proceed. I have 13 slides. I got 2 more to go, so bear with me. So, I used a lot of wedding as illustration. Now, who is into event management here? You plan events. That's you guys. Yeah? Give me some examples of something you consider to be a project. I have a few here. Planning a wedding, party, event management, renovating a house. Give me an example. Something very common. Fashion show. Very good. Now, let's use a fashion show as an example, okay? I'm going to go back to this slide, okay? Initiation, fashion show. Now, you need 2 things first from a fashion show. Why? Okay, where can you get the why? Why for the fashion show? From the customer, from the sponsor. And that's the beginning, that's the first thing. So what are you doing? You're trying to define your scope. So when you're trying to define your scope, there's a few things you need to do. This is fashion show, right? 2 things you need. Customer wants you to handle a fashion show. Now, what are some of the questions you're going to ask that customer?
Why do you want the show?
Why? Business plan. Why do you want the show? The reason why they want the show is going to be in the business plan. And in creating a business plan, you have to do what you call return on investment, cost-benefit analysis. Why do we do this fashion show? If we do this fashion show, what are we going to gain from it? What are we going to benefit? What's the return on investment? If I'm going to put $10,000 into doing a fashion show, and at the end of the fashion show, I make $5,000, okay? I'm losing money. I'm not going to do it. So the customer has to decide why they want to do the project and what's the cost-benefit analysis. Okay, if I'm spending $10,000 doing a fashion show and at the end of the fashion show, I get fame, I get popularity, I get increase my brand, and I make extra $5,000, that's $15,000. And now, you think about it, if I put that $15,000 in the bank for that time period, I could make, there's some investments that can make you twice that money. So you have to decide, that's where opportunity cost comes in. Opportunity cost, okay, what do I forego? Do I just put the money in the bank and increase it, double it, or I throw it into a business and get fame, popularity, increase my brand and make extra cash? That's where the cost benefit analysis comes in. So the customer has to do that first and say, this is what I need, this is what I plan to achieve from this venture, and all that is going to be contained in your business plan. So you're going to ask the customer to give you the business plan. That's what you're going to need. First thing you're going to need. Then the project charter, you may not apply that to a fashion show, but the project charter normally contains the key stakeholders and the constraints like the budget and what I need, what is the limit for budget and things like that. So you need all that. You need the project is called constraints. So what are the constraints? How far can I go with spending? What is the budget? So you need all that, collect all that details. After you collect the business plan, you collect the budget, you need statement of work. Okay? Statement of work will explain key deliverables, like what am I looking to get? If you're going to hand this fashion show for me, what am I looking to get from it? The customer has to state it. Okay? The reason why you do that is at the end of the fashion show, the customer can come to you and say, hey, I wanted this, I didn't get it. Like, you didn't mention it. It was not in your statement of work. It was not in the contract. Same thing with procurement. I need 50 this, I need 60 that, I need 100 of that. It has to be in the contract. And how you're going to inform the customer has to be stated in that contract. Customer cannot come and say, I want a manual for this. Like, okay, in the contract, you didn't mention you wanted a manual. So you need all that details, okay? When you get all these details, then you need to do something else. You need to identify the key stakeholders, okay? Obviously, that customer is not the only person who is interested in doing that fashion show. So you need to identify the key stakeholders. So ask the customer, who else is involved in this fashion show? Are you partnering with someone? Okay. Now, when you get those key stakeholders, you need all that details from the customer. Because some people partner, they don't tell you. At the middle of the project, someone else comes in and they're, no, I don't want this to happen. You're like, who are you? I don't even know you. Like, oh, I'm paying 50% of this project. Really? Okay. You didn't tell me. Oh, you never asked. Okay. Is it my job to ask? You're supposed to tell me. I forgot. What are we going to do? There's a problem. So you need to identify key stakeholders. You need to know who and who is involved. Media houses. Okay. So what are some of the key stakeholders for the fashion show? Examples. Sorry?
Yeah.
Models. Yep. You need models. What else do you need? Designers. Good. What else do you need? Media. Very good. What else?
Stage management.
Stage management. What about people coming to the event itself?
Yeah.
Let's just stick with this for now. Then the people who are going to attend, attendees. Then in your planning, you're going to use all of this to define your scope. Now you've gotten all the details from the customer, then you need to define your scope. You need to define what it's going to be in that fashion show. So in defining your scope, you're trying to collect all the requirements. Trust me, customer alone does not know all the requirements for that fashion show. So you need to collect all the requirements. you've never done a fashion show, then you need to use a tool of expert judgment to collect requirements. So you need expert judgment. You need to go find an expert. That's the previous presenter said you need to connect. That's it. You need to network. Now you need expert judgment. You go look at your connect. Who has done a fashion show before? Who has ideas? Who knows how it goes? You know, that's where you get all the nitty-gritty you need for a fashion show. That's when you start talking about budgets. So when you define the scope, that's where you get all the baselines: budget, schedule, cost, quality. You get all the requirements for that fashion show. Now requirements. Customer wants a fashion show, he doesn't know the requirements, he knows half of it, he doesn't know everything. But it's your job, as a person taking the job, to go and define all the requirements. Okay, so what are some of the requirements for a fashion show? You need a stage. You need a venue. What else?
Backstage room.
Backstage room, good. You need money, budget. You need tags. You need media. You need volunteers, good. What else would you need? You also need marketing, licensing. DJ, that's good. And so on and so forth. The list is endless. These are your requirements. Okay? These are your requirements. When you get your requirements, it's what we call work breakdown structure. That's when you need to break down the work. Okay? If you need templates, I can give you some of the templates. Then you create your WBS, your work breakdown structure. So the work breakdown structure is each work package. You decide each work package, okay? Now you can say transportation. You can say on the main day itself, fashion day, okay? You can say designers and models. I'm just giving a rough example. And each of this you need to break down. Under transportation, you can decide to add venue. Okay, how are you going to get people to the venue? Are you going to do buses?
Parking space.
Parking,
Security.
thank you. Security, parking space. You need to decide. You need to list all these things. And when you decide what you need, then you have to define the activities. Each of these work packages, what do I need with the venue? Okay? I need to contact the venue, I need to get a price, I need to get someone to handle that. So if you have a project team, somebody you're working with, you say, hey, can you take care of the venue and everything that has to do with the venue? That's when you create something it's called the RACI. Responsible, accountable, consult, and inform. Okay? Then you have to break down each of these activities and say, hey, who's responsible for venue? Fiyin is responsible. What is she doing with the venues? You have to state everything she's doing. Getting the cost, customer, and this. Now you're breaking down the activities. You're trying to gather all the information. Okay? When you have all that and you break down everything, then you need to start estimating the budget. You need to start adding costs. I want to do a fashion show. Fiyin, how much will it cost us to get the venue? $50. You go, you put that there. It's okay. Nah, $50 is too small. $500. Okay, $500 for venue. Let's say $500 for venue, okay? What else? Fashion day. Food. Drinks. State that. Models. How much are you going to pay them? Blah, 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 and everything you need. So you have to estimate the budget. And there are various tools you can use to estimate the budget. There's benchmarking, there's expert advice, there's bottom-down estimating, where you get all the prices, you estimate them. Estimate everything up to the work package level. Then you can have a baseline for your cost, how much this is going to cost us. So you have that cost. Okay. Now, you've done all of this. Now you're going to use all these activities to estimate the resources. What resources do I need? Where do I need them for? Do I need to look outside my organization? Do I need to contact friends? Do I need my kids to help me? Those are the resources. You bring everything together. And you put a calendar schedule. Okay? The reason why is things change. Timelines changes. And the customer is not going to release to you all the budget at once because all the money is in the bank. So you need to, at this time, at this milestone, I will need this amount. The customer will release it to you. At this time, I'll need this amount. So you're monitoring. You're not waiting 5 days. Okay? The flowers are the backdrop is supposed to arrive like 5 days ago. And you've not even paid the supplier. The customer hasn't released funds to you. Why? You didn't track when it's supposed to arrive. So you're into like, what am I going to do? The backdrops are not here, man. The event is going to start in 10 days. You know, you don't want all that. That's why you sit on top of the project. You want to make sure everything is going out. That's where the monitoring and control comes in. You're monitoring, you're inspecting, and things like that. Now, when you have your budget and you have everything in place, you put all that plan. You have to go and the next slide talks about, this one. That's the planning. Then you have everything. You have resources, you have the stakeholder engagement, how you're going to report back to the customer. And all of a sudden, it feels like the customer approved $10,000, but all the estimate is going to be like $20,000. What do? You go back straight to the customer and say, hey, for all the requirements you gave me that we decided for this fashion show, it's not going to be enough. $20,000 is not enough. I'm going to need extra money. At that point, before you start buying anything, before you proceed to execution, the customer has to approve. Because if you go on and start spending the money, and you go back to the customer and say, hey, $10,000 was not enough, I need $10,000 extra. And I'm sorry, we don't have any more money. Then you're faced with, what am I going to do? You might take up the cost yourself, extra cost, and you lose money. So before you start doing anything, when you find out that it's going to cost twice the amount, you have to go straight to the customer and say, hey, this thing is going to cost twice the amount. Do you want to proceed, or do we just close the project? And that's what government offices do. This is what we need. We're going to close the project or postpone. Customer has to decide. Customer will decide and say, hey, we're going to close it, or we're going to continue, take more money. So there's always what you call reserve or contingency. It's always a percentage of the budget kept aside when you run into risk or that kind of risk. Maybe the supplier from another country and there's political war going on. The container was destroyed. You need to assess the risk and say, hey, okay, we're not getting the backdrops from France anymore. There's a political instability going on. What do we do? Okay, talk about the risk. Okay, what do we have in contingency? We have like $2,000. Can that cover a local guy to give us backdrops? Oh yes, get a local guy. Get the backdrops. We're using a contingency plan. Extra money put aside. So some people call it padding. They add extra money for the project just in case things don't go well. You have a tolerance. You can take extra money and say throw it back in and keep the project alive. So after you do all that, you have your activities defined. Everything is all good. Then you move to the execution itself. Day of the fashion show itself. So the day of fashion show, what are you doing? You're monitoring, you're controlling, you're checking if everything's going as planned. Before that, you have to inspect the DJ, inspect everything, make sure everything is going fine. Then at the end of the project, then you close the project. And when you close the project, that's when you make sure all procurement documents are complete. Customer takes the final acceptance of the product. For instance, I'm going to use my wife as an example. Abby, she makes meat pie. And if a customer says, I want 50 meat pies, and this is the size I want, and at the day of the delivery, you take the meat pie to the customer, and customer says, hey, they're cold, they're not hot. Okay, what are you going to do? You go back and check the documents and say, hey, you never mentioned you wanted them hot. This is proof. You never mentioned. Because I'm like, this is just common sense. No, it's not common sense. You did not mention you want them hot. These are the stuff you said you wanted. You wanted 50 meat pie. You wanted this size. This is stuffings you want. And that is what I'm giving you. Customer will inspect. Everything's all good. Check, 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 check. Good. Project closed. Give me my money. Take your money. See you again. And that's it. So you have to do your documentation. Even if it's a party. Even clients, what do you need? Write it down. When I have everything, like I MC weddings and events, and I always talk with the people. I said, what do you want? I write it down. When I have a tentative program, then I send it back to the customer for approval. I said, these are the things I want to do at the event. It's a kid's birthday. These are the games I want to play. These are the things I want to do. Oh, nice. Approve. Right. Good. So come rain, come shine on the day of the birthday, and I'm doing a game with the kids, and customers like, what is he doing? I didn't want that. No, you said you wanted it. You approved it. So you're always trying to manage the work, be in charge, and make sure there is no friction between you and the customer. Because you like it or not, customers going to recommend you to other people. Do a good job, you're going to get more jobs. So I've done a lot of jobs for people here in Saskatoon, emceeing and weddings and birthdays, and I still get more jobs. Why? Because I leave a good impression and I follow my processes. I use most of these principles to make sure I get approval, to make sure I get the requirements, and I monitor and track. I'm on top of the game, and at the end of the day, good job, pay me my balance, I go home. That's it. So, when you close a fashion show, what are some of the things that you do when you close a fashion show?
You could do a evaluation. You could for the people who attended.
Good, evaluation.
Or the people who were involved as well.
That's very good. You do evaluation. Why are you doing evaluation? Can you tell me?
Yeah, just to see what they liked, where it can improve.
Very good. Ultimate project management is lesson learned. You have to document your lessons learned. You have to document. The reason why you're documenting your lessons learned, 10 more minutes or 5 minutes? 5? Okay, I'll just do 5. The reason why you document your lesson learned is then you know your best suppliers. Next time, you won't go to the bad ones, and that's business. So if you have a supplier that delivered 3 days late with no reason, and the goods were substandard, but you just had to use them anyway, next time will you use that supplier? No way, that's business. Even if it's my cousin, I don't care. That's it. Business is, yeah. So business is business. So you evaluate them and you document your lessons learned. And the reason you document lessons learned so that in future projects you can refer back to those lessons learned to give you a guide on how to do a fashion show or evaluate your suppliers and things like that. Same thing with documents. You have to document everything. The reason why you need to document everything is a similar project comes, like a fashion show, you go back to your previous documents and say, what did I do? Then you spend half of the time planning because you already have similar stuff you can benchmark with. In project, you call that organizational process assets. So all these process assets, procedures, you keep them, lessons learned. You have an issue log, change log. Put everything there. One thing I missed to talk about was in the fashion show, customer comes and say, "Hey, okay, I don't need this anymore. I want to change this." You have to think about it. Was it initially part of the requirements? Yes, you want to add a new requirement. That can either disrupt the schedule, increase the cost, or reduce the quality of the job. So you just have to analyze everything and say, hey, this was a part of what we initially agreed. If you're going to change this, then we have to sit down and reanalyze the cost, and you're going to bring more money in. So that's when you do your calculations. It's called end value calculations and variance analysis. You have to calculate, it's all mathematical business stuff, but you have to do that. You have to do accounting and say, if we add one more component to this fashion show, this is how much it's going to cost us more. That's where project integration management comes in. That company you're adding is not just driving up the cost, it's going to affect every other thing else. Your schedule, your suppliers, your this, your that, you have to integrate everything back and tell the customer, this is how much extra I'm going to need to run that fashion show. So it is your job to do it. If you don't do it, customer will say, oh, at the end of the day, that's what we agreed. I'm not going to pay you more money. So if you do anything extra, some people want to go above and beyond. We used to do that back home. We just want to impress the customer, add the extra sales service. In project, no. If the customer says, I want a bottle of water, it has to be transparent. I have to see the water. That's all I need. If you go and add extra functionality, you make it bigger, you make the logo shinier or pinkish, and you give it back in your mind, you're like, this is beautiful. He's going to love it. You give it to the customer and he says, hell no, this is not what I wanted. That's trouble for you. You've lost money, you've lost time, you've lost your reputation. So you have to stick to the requirements the customer gave you. Stick to that scope, control it. Don't let the customer change it anyhow. Even if they're changing it, let them know what it's going to cost for the change. And they have to approve it. At the end of the day, when you're delivering, bring the checklist from the initial and show these are the things you requested. And this is exactly what I've done. Take, capiche. Everyone goes, I'm happy. That's project. That's where monitoring and control comes in. Control, monitor, make sure everything is going according to plan. And closing the fashion show, you need to take down. You need to settle everything else. Settle payments, everyone else that needed to be paid, models, everyone, And you know what? Then you need to get your balance. Close procurements. In doing this, you've done a very good job. Next time, customer will always recommend you to someone else. So it is your job as a project manager to sit on top of your game, okay? Now, in the direct and manage work, if you have people, your team members that are not performing, then you have to use your skills to make them perform. Do a performance appraisal. If you need to swing people around, swing them around. If you need to have everybody in one room during analysis so that they can concentrate, put them in one room. It's called collocation. Putting them in one room, you're increasing their productivity, and that's it. So that's a practical way you can apply project management principle to everything you're doing. Even if it's developing software, home renovation, you need to do contract with the carpenter. Carpenter cannot go and construct 2-bedroom, big, cabinets. When you want them one, contract says one, not two, So that's it. Thank you very much. I hope I did not go over my time. So what are some takeaways or questions you have? Feel free, speak up. I've been doing all the talking, so. What are some of your takeaways?
How do you use project management at your house, in your house?
In my house,
Yeah.
it's all about the principles. It's just about the principles. It becomes a part of you. So when I'm planning for something, like I'm planning for Christmas party, first thing I'm thinking about is, okay, Christmas party. What are my risks? People going to attend? People going on holidays? And I start calling my friends. You're going to be around Christmas? You're going to be in Christmas? You don't want to do a big party and nobody shows up. I said, you didn't tell me. You didn't give me heads up. I got plans. So that's where project management principles comes in. Everything you're doing in your house. Security, like my wife knows me. I don't joke with security. I don't joke with health. I don't joke with safety. Because those things drive up cost. If you're sick today, it's going to affect everyone else. The kids, your job, security, someone breaks into your house, or you forget to set the alarm, or the cooker goes on fire, that's trouble. You don't want to deal with all the insurance claim. So those principles becomes a part of you. You apply them in when you want to do events or do anything in your home. Any more questions?
Do you do, I guess, teaching, other than this event, do you do teaching on project management outside of your work?
Yes,
as a personal thing for people?
Yes, I do. That's what I told you. If you want to partner with me, you're a consulting firm, right? If you want to partner with me and teach people or organize group sessions where you pick an aspect of project management, you have me lecture, why not? I partner with you and we can come up with something very good. So consulting is something I'm also going into. That's why I have my contact. If you need follow-ups and trainings, project management, I have the experience. I've been in the field. I have a master's degree in project management. I'm PNP certified. So if I don't have resources, I'll find someone who has it and bring it to you. So feel free, consult me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Is your brain burning or what? I know mine is. Speaking of project management, I have some feedback forms that I would like you guys to pass around and fill out when you can. And we would really appreciate it to know how we did, what you want, and how we can move forward. It's all about, again, lessons learned, right? The feedback, how we can make it better, right? So this is really good. Again, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and get some snacks. I would like you guys to talk amongst each other and then find out your favorite holiday from 5 people. All right? 5 people. All right, get it moving. Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it. Sorry, I'll do this.